Good morning, everyone. It's Monday morning, and we're here for a core mat class. Um, you're going to want to have a mat or some comfortable place to lie on the floor, a ball for between the inner thighs, some dumbbells for added resistance, and maybe a flex band. Once you've gathered your stuff, go ahead and lie down and make yourself comfortable. As we often do on Mondays, we're going to start in a stretched out position. Right. So if it takes a little bit of time, that's fine, but gradually we want to spread out on the mat. That means legs long, arms by the sides. You can have palms up or palms down, whatever helps the chest and shoulders to feel more open. And once you're in that position, have a couple breaths, just kind of sighing into place. So we'll inhale and fill up the body, the lung volume with breath, and then exhale, let it all go. Maybe do that one more time. Relaxing deeply into the supportive ground. And then we begin movement with a little bit of rocking through the toes, flexing and pulling the toes upward toward the nose, and then pointing and stretching the toes downward away. Take that at a slow, gentle pace, just exploring your range of movement. And when you've done a couple of those, we stop in that kind of center point with the toes reaching upward and start to rock side to side, laterally across the base of the heels, the back of the heels, really. You'll feel a rolling all the way up the chain of the legs. From the hips into the heels, we get this nice, gentle back and forth that eventually turns into a circle with both feet circling in the same direction. You can reverse that circle when it feels like it's time. We just do a couple of each of these, really. And then sigh and let your movement through the feet stop. And we finally bend the knees and place the feet flat on the ground. Keep a kind of wider stance. And we'll start to rock the knees a little bit side to side. Now, I know that this can be a little bit scary if you have instability or laxity in the pelvis, but we're not really going to push very far. We're just going to let the knees sway to the right and sway to the left, moving the thigh bones in the pelvis. And then if the back and sacrum allow, you can take it into a rolling across the hips. Just a couple of those. You'll let the legs center. And then I'd like you to give yourself a big hug around your shoulders, holding opposite arm or shoulder in each hand. And that same little rolling do here. And the movement exploration is the same in principle for everyone, but you go through your most comfortable range here. Do another rocking side to side across the ribs, and then pause in the center and put the new arm on top. With the new arm on top, continue the rocking. And then finally in center, arms down by your sides. We're going to think of nodding the head yes. So as you nod the head downward, I want you to think of lifting the base of your skull off the back of your shoulders. And then either return through neutral or perhaps look up a little bit. And in all of this, the weight of the head is supported by the ground. We're nodding gently yes. Maybe one more time. Pivoting the head on that top vertebra. And then with the gaze directly forward, we'll take just a couple of turns no. Weight of the head still resting on the ground as you're rolling, pardon me, across the back of your head. Finally, let the head return to center and shuffle your feet more directly in line with your hips and put the ball between your knees. Hopefully we've gotten a little bit more warmth and comfort in all the areas of the body from your toes to your head. We're going to rest in neutral and have another breath in and out, sort of sighing out the exhale. Pardon me, feeling the weight of your bones. And then inhale through the nose. And as you exhale through the mouth this time, build into a slow squeeze of the inner thighs as you lengthen through the bones and joints in the spine. Focus on the exhale for about a minute here. The slow build into inner thighs as you lengthen the bones, the spine specifically, all the while preserving neutral posture. And eventually at the end of your exhale, feel that as the bones lengthen, they also gather a little bit at the base of the pelvis. And it's often easy to, or easier to refer to the sitting bones. I don't want you to squash the sitting bones together. I'd like you to feel more like they have that relationship across the space between that the inner thighs do below. And then one more time, feeling the lengthening in the Kegel. Feel that the space between the pubic bones in front and the tailbone in back is constant and supported by pelvic floor. On your next inhale, try to draw that pelvic floor support up into the body to that spot just below and behind the navel. And then exhale as before. Pelvic floor lifting to the interior spaces in your center as you inhale downward toward it. Exhale is the same. So keep this going. Now, a core element for each phase of the breath. Eventually, the breaths feeling integrated along the continuum of exhale and inhale. Have one more, exhaling and inhaling. And then on the next exhale, add an imprint to that phase of the breath. When you inhale, release that imprint. And each time you exhale, repeat the imprint, layering it on top of the core connections that we already established. We're continuing through our set of imprint and release, just 3 more times, let's say. And as you do your last imprint, I'd like you to stay there and hold that position. So we're all arriving and remaining in an imprinted position through the lower back with a settling and connection upstream into the ribs. And think about this for a moment. I know some people are coming into the room, so I'll take a moment to talk. In that line between the pelvis and the ribs, if either end of it grows unstable or slips from position, then it'll be harder to maintain in toto, right? So keep both ends, the pelvis and the ribs, firm in their positioning, connecting upstream from lower abs to upper abs. And then as you hold that firmness and that length, on your next exhale, lift just your heels from the floor. In order to do this, I'd like you to press downward through the balls of the feet. Keep the heels lifted for a moment and feel all the things. So the core breath for exhales and inhales, the length and connection and stability between pelvis and ribs, and the work in the lower legs and the feet as you hold the lift of the heels. Inhale here. And then exhale, return to a neutral low back. Keeping the heels lifted if you can, inhale, and exhale once more, make imprint. Inhale here, exhale, return to neutral. Stay with me if you can. Take a breath. We imprint one last time and stay in that imprint. And then exhale, lower the heels firmly into ground. And finally, inhale, return to neutral spine. Remove or lower your head mat. We're going to continue into hip rolls, so we don't want a lot of lift under the back of the head or displacement through the spine. Feeling the importance of the core, the connection upstream into ribs and downstream into feet, we apply all of these to hip rolls. Inhaling, lifting Kegel into the body as you open the chest and shoulders, and then exhale, finally beginning your hip roll, moving through imprint, connecting upstream and down as you press into the feet and begin to lift the hips, spine peeling off the ground, one vertebra at a time. Rest on the shoulders and inhale there. Exhale and roll it back down. This is that sequential flexion through the spine. I'd like you to do 2 more, please. And I'm going to keep kind of quiet because you've got the choreography. And last repetition. When you've rolled down, you pause there. And of course, if you find that you need to stretch or rub out the hamstrings or do anything like that, you're welcome to do that. We are going to continue into some upper body forward bending. So as soon as you're able, return to bent knee position with the ball between the inner thighs. We are perfectly neutral through the pelvis. We have hands ideally behind the head, but you can also place them at your chest or by your sides. We're going to be doing some forward bending with the idea of connecting downstream from the top into our center without any push or pull from the back, letting this all be an action of flexion. So we'll inhale and nod the chin downward, flexing the cervical spine. Now we'll exhale and bend forward from the bottom of the ribs, moving those ribs inward and drawing them down toward the stable, neutral pelvis. Holding the lift from the mat through the head and the shoulders, inhale. And on your next exhale, return to ground. We keep this going, nodding the chin to the chest, and then flexing from the top downward. Exhale, connecting deeply into that stable foundation of your pelvis and center. Exhale and return. Whatever version you're doing, and feel free to go between the versions, continue for 3 or 4 more repetitions. Maintaining focus on core elements of each phase of the breath and the groundedness of the feet. Finish the one you're on and do 1 more, please. Beautiful. We will continue with spinal rotation. And feel free, if you still are working on your ab prep, to continue. We all are going to end up lying on our side, a little extra padding under the bottom ear, probably. Same neutral that we were lying on our back with, ball between the knees is a good option here. And if you'd like to go ahead and use a dumbbell in the top hand, that's fine, but keep it pretty light because we haven't really done any sort of warm up for the shoulders yet. Think more about the placement of your shoulder blades, stability wise, and the ability of the arm to move within, right? We have the arms extended forward, the chest is open, and exhale here in preparation. The squeezing of the ball and setting your length is important. Now, finally, inhale, turn the head upward, lift the arm. Continue rotating through the cervical spine, chest, and downward as you exhale. Hold the open position and have an honest inhale, lifting your kegel to the inside, and then exhale, return. Continue through 4, so quite a few this morning. Feel the opening of the arm and the shoulder continuing as you go into the larger rotation of the spine, but stay connected across the back. At no point do you ever want to feel like your shoulder blades fall off the back of your ribs and have to strain to connect into your core. That squeeze of the ball through the inner thighs and your focus on length as you exhale helps to ground the movement above with stability below. We're moving through our set of 4. When you've completed 4, you can roll over and set yourself up for the other side. Take the time to check your posture and perform that exhale that establishes length and stability. And when you're ready, continue on the inhale to turn the head and lift the arm. Sequentially from top to bottom once more, this time through rotation, exhale, breath in, and breath out, sequencing from bottom to top. A set of 4. Shoulder assemblies stable on the ribs, and the arm exploring stretch within the shoulder. Mhm. Once you've completed your last repetition, settle for a moment and then roll over to lie on your front. So we're prone, we have a new facing, the legs are stretched out below, and we're going to again start with a tiny amount of core breathing here that we relate downstream into the feet and the legs. So make your upper body comfortable. We will start with hip extension when we finally do movement. A little bit of something under the forehead to support the weight and position of your head. And the arms comfortable. Often under the forehead is good, but sometimes by the shoulders feels better. Lying here, you want to orient the front of the pelvis to the mat. So the pubic bones and the 2 hip points on the front, the ASISs, feel like there's length and neutrality from the bottom of the ribs into the pelvis. And then on your next exhale breath, find that length upward from the pelvis through the ribs. As you use transverses here, focusing on length and eventually that kegel across the base of the pelvis, you should feel a firming through the sides of the waist. Have one more exhale, feeling the length, the kegel, the firming into the sides of the waist and the integration all the way up. And now have 1 or 2 exhales where you feel the relationship of the center to the legs all the way down through the point of the toes. You'll feel your calves working, your toes pointing, the ankles and back of the knees stretching, and find more and more an awareness of glutes and inner thighs as you pull through the length of your posture. Now, finally, on the next exhale, as you pull through the length of your legs, begin to lift them both from the mat, extending the hips. No movement in the pelvis or the spine above. hold the hips extension, inhale, and exhale, lower. We do just two more of these, so make the most out of the breath and the specificity of the movements. We're working a little bit more openness into the front of the hips and creating a little bit more clarity about the lower abs versus the hip flexors. On this last repetition, we want to deeply engage the lower abs and feel the glutes working against that strong foundation. Once the legs are lowered, leave them stretched against the floor and maintain that foundation as you place your hands for breaststroke prep number 1. That's our elbows bent position with the hands up near the shoulder tops. Reaching through the foundation of the legs, now we exhale and connect upstream into the ribs and the bottom of the shoulder blades. Moving the bottom of the shoulder blades downward as we open the chest, the breastbone reaches forward and rises upward. Inhale at the top and exhale to lower. Please do this 4 more times. Know that core support for extension is just as important as core support for flexion, and eventually should be just as reflexive, just as easy to find. And when you've done your 5th one, you sit back into shell for a moment. When you've had a couple of breaths in a centered position, you can walk your hands side to side or add any additional movement that helps to release the spine from its work. We'll eventually return to center, walk the hands in and roll up, stacking the spine. And lie back down onto the mat for some tabletop work for shoulders and other things. With the ab prep and the breaststroke preps that we've done, hopefully you have a pretty good feeling for the muscles that flex the spine as well as the muscles that extend the spine, and then feel the space in between bounded and supported through length by the core. So transversus, pelvic floor. When you're ready to go, take a breath and exhale, make your imprint. Now, before you lift your legs, hold on to this imprint and get a sense of the bony points at the base of the pelvis, the space between the sitting bones and the space between the pubic bone and the tailbone. There is a muscle that connects the tailbone to the pubic bone. We want to use it to help stabilize that relationship so that as we exhale and lift a leg, we don't have a gapping or a sudden loss of connection between the front and back of the pelvis. Exhale and lift the second leg. All right. Once the legs are up, squeeze the inner thighs together. You might want to locate your dumbbells as well. And again, have a sense of stability through the front and back of the bottom of your pelvis and side to side without squashing those points inward from the outside. Arms extend forward and you'll exhale and feel the connection upstream through length from the pelvis into the ribs. We have the inside of the wrists facing each other. And on your next inhale, stretch the arms back, reaching the shoulders into an upward extension. Exhale and return to vertical through the arms. And move through a set of 5 reaches, 1 breath per movement, allowing the arms to move easily in the shoulders and maintaining a sort of monitoring or focus of the situation in your posture and through the base of the pelvis. When you've returned from your 5th one, we'll pause in place and prepare mentally for triceps. When you're ready to go on your inhale, bend your elbows and let your hands drop slowly back towards your shoulders. And when you exhale, contract the triceps to extend the elbows, arms reaching forward in their length. We do 5 here, continuing to focus on core breath and monitoring the state of your structure. Now, our final movement, when we've completed our 5th little triceps extension, is an opening and closing to the side. And we're going to do a backwards sort of breath so that on your exhale, you're opening wide to the side, freedom across the chest and upper back, even as you connect most deeply to your length. Inhale and return. Exhale, length and pelvic floor stability and support. Inhale, lifting Kegel inward. We have 5 of these, and we're mostly through. When you've done your last one, you'll lower your arms to your sides, release the weights, and maybe hug the knees into your chest for a moment, but do leave the legs together. Rock a little side to side, get long and comfortable through the lower back, and then set the tailbone on the floor and place the legs into a tabletop position. Arms by your sides, palms upward can be a nice place for the shoulders. We're going to exhale and pull one knee more deeply in toward the torso, and then inhale and stretch it away, or maybe just return it to tabletop. Exhale, pull that same leg in. So we repeat 4 or 5 times across the side and inhale, stretch. Your challenge is to keep the length as you flex the hip and to keep the Kegel as you stretch through your lengthened hip and spine. When you've done the last one, be sure you're softening your neck. Return that leg to tabletop and pause for a minute, stabilizing. We continue on the other side. As you're ready, exhale, pull the knee in, and inhale, stretch the leg long. We want to start with that exhale with that deep hip flexion as a way to dig more deeply into the lower abs and into our length before extending the hip. When you've done your 5th one of these, return to that full tabletop position. You can hug in if you need to, you can rearrange. And we'll do a set of ab preps eventually in tabletop. So when you're ready to move on, consciously place the tailbone. And on an exhale, place the legs in tabletop, hands behind the head perhaps, or in your favorite position. Working through the stability of legs into center, now nod the chin to the chest, and from center, connect as you exhale and bend forward, top to bottom. Take a breath and exhale to lower. Now we're only doing 4. Nod the chin to the chest, stable and supported through center. Exhale from top to bottom, bend through the flexion of your spine. And exhale, lower. On these last 2, think of putting as much curve into this stretch into the curve you're creating as possible. And the last one, please hold at the top. Now your imprint and the connection upstream into the bottom ribs are your primary goal as well as length and Kegel. We're going to inhale and dip one foot toward the mat without necessarily touching it. And then exhale and pick it back up, flexing at the hip. Please alternate across the sides with this one. Inhale, dip down, maintain the lift under the upper back, and then exhale as you flex the hip, maintain the stretch through your curve. We do 3 or 4 across the sides, long and firm through the sides of the waist as you bend. Belly drawing in. When you've completed your last one across the sides, have a tabletop position, and from there, exhale and lower your head to the mat. Beautiful. Whatever stretch you like, you can stretch here or put the feet down one at a time and extend through your legs, whatever feels good to you. Eventually, feet do go to the ground. We stretch the legs out long. And as you stretch the legs long, the pelvis returns through neutral, the low back curve returning. And you can do that little thing with the feet, flexing and pointing, rocking or circling. It's time for some more prone extension. And when you're ready, you'll roll over onto your belly again. We're going to do breaststroke prep number 2 or dart right off the bat. So your arms are by your sides, a little layer of support under your forehead. Your legs are stretched, and you're going to do all the arranging that you know matters in this exercise. So we get our posture, we get the stretch and support of the legs, we connect it into our center, both downstream and up, and we allow the arms to relax or kind of soften forward. Our first action here on the inhale is to place the shoulders into neutral, arms along the sides, palms facing inward. Next, on the exhale, connect upstream into ribs and shoulder blades, and then slide the shoulder blades down to lift the chest into a hover. Length through the crown of the head forward, through the toes backward, exhale and lower. We'll do a set of 5 here as well. Discovering and building the presence of core in extension, making that just as natural as core in flexion or core in neutral. Now we are approaching, some of us, that 4th repetition. Repetition number 5, we're going to do together. So when you've lowered from your 4th one, pause for a moment, because we're going to add some triceps work to this last one. The arms are still long by the side, and on your inhale, you place the shoulders into neutral, lifting the arms up. Feel that the arms remain parallel to the floor, and exhale once more, extend the upper spine, chest hovering. Now, as you extend the upper spine to remain arms parallel to the floor, you're going to use your triceps and your lats. 5 times here on exhale, we pulse upward through the back of the arms, stretching through the elbows and the wrists and not levering the shoulders into the neck. We continue to spread the chest as well and to pull the shoulder blades toward the center off the neck. Beautiful, guys. After your 5th one, you'll hold that beautiful openness and stretch, and then exhale, lower down. Please sit back into shell. Same as before, we take a couple of breath cycles in center, and then have the liberty to customize the stretch, moving around whatever needs to be moved, shifting the weight where it needs to be shifted. Returning through center, walk your hands in, and we'll sit and do a little half rollback. We are focusing on the arms. We just paid a great deal of attention to the action of the triceps and the positioning of the shoulders. We'll sit up with knees bent. You can have the ball between the knees. And of course, you sit up as high as you need to sit in order to release through the hips, because that release is important. And we're going to try as much as possible to support the weight of our arms and shoulders. Classically, we have arms extended forward and elbows straight. If that doesn't work for you, I want you to consider having arms in this sort of position in front, moving toward a more open position that allows a more open chest, a shorter lever for the shoulder to support. And then, of course, if that's not sustainable, hands at the chest center, just feeling the neutral placement of the shoulders. We're going to inhale here and exhale just once, connecting and feeling length upstream. Sitting on a yoga block, we'll see how this goes. And then with the position of the arms and shoulders stable but not strained, we'll exhale and use our imprint muscles to roll back, contracting the abs to open the hips. So opening the flexion a little bit. Arms parallel to the floor, inhale here, and then exhale, squeeze the ball, super important here. We're gonna squeeze the ball and from the inner thighs, activate the hip flexors to bring the pelvis forward, moving into deeper hip flexion. Prepare, and then exhale, imprint. Rolling back as deeply as you can go without tilting the upper body. And now it's ready for hip flexion. Inhale here, exhale, pulling the pelvis toward the knees or the knees toward the pelvis, but with the feet on the ground, right? The action is the same. It's the closing of the hips. It's the work of the hip flexors. Continue through 2 more repetitions. Lower abs and inner line of the thighs as they connect through the deep part of the pelvis. 4th and final one here, and then we take a breather. When you've returned, allow your arms to rest. All right, and you can roll your shoulders around, move your head around, breathe easily. Okay. Moving toward our neck pull front prep, but with a little bit different motion of the arms. You know that if you don't want to do the version I'm describing with the lifting and lowering of the arms, you can have hands to forehead or hands on the chest. All right. It builds the same way as we did before. Ditch the block before I fall off of it. Ball between the knees, I find is a helpful tool. And we'll have the arms extended forward. Inhale, lifting the Kegel into the body. And then as you exhale, contract the lower abs. The lower abs, not the upper back. You roll back, you roll back, you roll back, keeping the arms parallel to the floor and letting the shoulders move with the ribs. Here, now on the inhale, if you can, lift the arms up. On the exhale, bend forward, chest moving forward as you bend at the bottom of the ribs, forehead moving toward the ball, pull through the inner thighs into the lower abs, flexing at the hips, and then inhale, roll up. Continue, please. Exhale, roll back. Have a breath where you lift the arms and challenge the connection through the ribs. And then exhale, bend forward, hollowing the belly as you stretch around the shape of the curve. Please do 2 more, or a total of 4. That's it. I love these modifications. You guys really smart. And once you finish your last one, again, just rest your arms for a moment. Ooh, boy, really nice. All righty, you guys. Yeah, stretch your legs if you need to do a little sort of cobbler's stretch or a little twist, that's fine. We're going to lie back down on the mat. So anything you need to do or sort out while you're sitting. And then please lie on your back. You'll want to have your ball or a yoga block. And sometimes I find for this next thing, a yoga block is actually a little more helpful if you have it. If not, no big deal. Just because it's a cleaner, firmer line, right, between the inner thighs. We are going to do reverse spinal rotation. So back at the beginning of class, we did the normal spinal rotation where we twisted down or open from top to bottom. Now we're going to twist from bottom into the waist, but because the pelvis can be a delicate structure, especially as it relates to the sacrum and the lower spine, we want to have stability between the knees and between the pelvic caps. So, long way of saying that we go slowly and with a lot of awareness into this. When you're ready, exhale, make your imprint. We use those lower ab muscles a lot. We feel that the upper abs, the lower rib area, is stable. We know that we want both ends of this to be well placed and well supported. Exhale, lift a leg up. And then exhale, lift the second leg. If you have a yoga block, put it between the inner thighs. And if you don't, just go ahead and use the ball. Thinking of the legs, this tabletop shape, and the connection up into the pelvis as one fixed unit, right? We're going to exhale and roll the pelvis off to one side, not letting the knees slide or shift. And then inhale, return through center. Now I start small too. Exhale without pressing into the floor through the shoulders or the neck. Twist from the waist. And inhale, return through center. Continue across the sides. We want to let the upper body rest and try not to close off the chest. And if you know you've got some sensitivity or instability in the pelvis, pay a lot of attention to the spacing between the sitting bones and the spacing between the pubic bones and the tailbone. All of that should be a constant. Let's do 4 across the sides. Mm-hmm. When you've done the last one, put your block aside. Beautiful, you guys. That's such clean work. And put those feet one at a time down on the ground, finally releasing your imprint. Really nice job. All right. So have a chance to recuperate, take a breath or two, return the ball or block between the knees. We're going to bend forward from the mat and do another 4 sets of twists, but this time the pelvis and the legs are on the ground and the moving part is upstream of that. As we twist across the waist, it will cause a rocking across the ribs rather than across the hips. The same stability that we had with the previous exercise, hands behind the head or in an alternate position that you prefer. Place the shoulders and then inhale, nod the chin. Exhale, find your length and bend forward. In the forward bend, feel the stability through length of the back of the pelvis and the ribs. And on the exhale breath, twist from the waist to one side, rolling across the stable placement of the bottom ribs. And then inhale, return through center. Exhale, twisting from the waist. Now we roll to the other side across the bottom of the ribs. And inhale through center and go for a set of 4. If your legs are tilting side to side, your feet are not stable into ground, I will guarantee that your pelvis and spine are kind of squishy against each other. Feel your inner thighs supporting the work of pelvic floor. And when you've done your 4 to each side, return through center and exhale, lower your head. Whew, take the ball out. And we're just going to do next a single set of scissors as a way to stretch through the hips. We'll follow it with some one leg circles, so kind of completing that release through the hips. Ready to move on, we'll make an imprint on the exhale. Inhale and exhale, lift a leg at a time into tabletop. When the legs are up, you hold the back of your thighs. You might even pull the knees in toward the chest. We do want to end in that grounded position through the tailbone, though, with the legs, the thigh bones vertical in space. You can choose to bend forward or not. If you're going to bend forward, nod your chin to your chest. And then without lifting the tail or squashing it into the pubic bones, exhale, bend forward from the mat. Extend the legs upward. And on your exhale breath, split them front to back, pulling the front leg in with both hands gently. And then on the next exhale, switching. With the exhales, you can add an additional pulse. So it's right. If you want that additional juice out of the lower abs, length through the spine and stretch through the hip. If you end up feeling this more in the neck than in the stretch of the legs or the work of the abs, then lower your head. Please complete the set you're on and do 2 more across the sides. And when you're done with the exercise, hold that still point at the top and bend the knees slowly. Inhale in place and exhale, lower your head if it's lifted. And then exhale, lower one foot and return to neutral. Place the flex band around the bottom of the other foot if you're using it. And we continue into one leg circle. We're only going to do a few in each direction, so we'll keep it relatively brief. When you've got your flex band or not, go ahead and extend this top leg. This will be our moving leg. And find a place that you feel stretched and also in control of the leg through its length. And then maybe slide the bottom foot down a little bit. The placement of the bottom foot is up to you. It can be completely stretched or you can keep it bent. Have an exhale, balancing your neutral posture. And then on the inhale breath, bring the working leg out to the side and exhale, circle it down a little across the midline and up over the top. Do 4. Now, like our reverse spinal rotation, we want our pelvis to be stable. We are not going to allow the movement of the leg. Please reverse after 4 using same leg. We're not going to allow that movement of the leg and the hip to displace the stability of the pelvis against the sacrum, right? So the two halves are stable with regard to each other and with regard to the insertion of the bottom of your spine. You want to keep all those areas happy and strong. After you've done your last one, you bend that knee, put the flex band off to the side, hug your legs into your chest. Mm-hmm. And of course, now, having returned to tabletop, we're going to put the new foot on the ground. As that new foot goes to ground, we clean up that tabletop leg and make neutral spine, and then hook the flex band around the bottom of the foot. You'll have a pretty good idea where this goes. So extend and find the positioning of the top leg and then the bottom leg. And when you're ready to begin, start in the outward direction. 4 repetitions, please. Right, honoring that goal of stability through center, but also building into strength and support for our movement. You can have it all. Takes a little work, but reverse after 4, please. When you're done with your last one, you can put the flex band off to the side, find a position of stretch. And then go ahead and lengthen out on the mat and roll onto the side that faces the monitor just so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah. So we're going to do a couple of things for side leg. One of them is new and one of them is not. And we're going to do them in sequence, right? So that's why seeing the monitor might be helpful. First one is super familiar. We've done it a lot. Little extra padding under the bottom of your ear. We're going to have the legs a little forward, a slight hinge here, and we want to have support through the bottom of the waist. So we're not exaggerating the curve on the top, right? And tipping the tailbone. Flex through your feet. I know you can't see my feet, but they are flexed and I feel like I'm standing on firm ground. And then on the exhale breath, lift the top leg to the outer height of the hip, the height of your trochanter. We're going to inhale and pulse the leg forward. And exhale, point the toes and take the leg back. Flexing the foot. Inhale, you can add that little extra sniff and point through the toes and take the leg back. Still working that stability. Please continue through 3 or 4 more repetitions, aiming for 6. Nice breathing, you guys. When you've done your last one, rest for a moment, but stay on the same side. Now, of course, if you need to bend your knees a little bit or right, find some position where you can reset from, that's fine. While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and show briefly what I'd like us to do. So you remember one leg circle. We're still going to have the legs a little forward. We're going to work with a bend of the knee, bending the knee, inhaling and rotating open. Now we exhale, push the heel up and pull the leg down. So it's not exactly analogous to one leg circle, but we'll inhale forward and open, exhale up and down. After we've done a few of these, right, quick and dirty here, we'll do the reverse. So we'll inhale, flex and open, and then exhale. Did I just do the same thing? I did. Sorry. We'll inhale, keep the legs straight and open. And then from the top, bend and bring it down, right? Turning outward, open, bending from the top and bringing it in. Okay. It's definitely Monday. So if you haven't been playing along, let's start with the first version I showed, because that is really what I meant to do. We're going to inhale, bend the knee and bring it forward, turn it out, extend upward and bring it down. Yeah. Bend the knee, lifting it forward, outward, upward, and down. You guys knew what I meant. Do 1 or 2 more if you haven't done this. Now listen, you don't have to extend fully through the knee or push the motion of the hip, especially if your hip is not doing this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So pause at the end of this one and we reverse. All right. So we'll turn out, lift up, turn in, bend the knee, and bring it in and down. Right. Now, if you're not doing the full extension, you can just make a little circle, right? Like you're drawing a circle with your kneecap on the wall opposite you. A valid version of this exercise. And I swear this is a genuine Pilates exercise. It happens to be a little more advanced version of the side leg series. When you've done this one, pause and roll to the other side. I know you guys are like, no, she's making this up. All right, you guys. We do the first version, the one we're all familiar with, right? You're gonna have that little angle at the hips, the stretch of the legs, the flexion through the feet, the neutrality of the spine, and on your exhale, lift your top leg. Inhale, send that leg forward, maybe pulsing. And then exhale, point the toes and take the leg back. Keep that going. Aim for 5 or 6. And then we find a moment to rest after our last one. And I'm not rushing you. I just want to kind of remind you of our sequence. Now, when I demonstrate, I tend to exaggerate movements. You know that, I'm sure, at this point. So go through the range that is healthy for you. And we're going to do our circling. We start with the first version. Inhaling to bend the knee parallel, bringing it forward, and then exhale, extending it upward, rolling laterally through the hip and pulling downward. Try 4, maybe 5, however many repetitions you did on the other side. We're stabilizing the pelvis and trying to find our range of movement in the hip as well as build the strength that supports it and get some circulation down into the hip joint. It's a joint that doesn't have a lot of blood flow in general. And let's go ahead and reverse. When you're ready, turn the leg outward and lift it up. Bend from the top, bring it inward and lower it down. It's that outward circle, bringing it forward and in, back to parallel, using a bent knee if that's more appropriate. That's it. When you've done your 4th or 5th one, pause and lie on your back. We're finishing up here. We're going to keep it brief. Remove or lower your head mat all the way. We will do 3 shoulder bridges, not as a way of ramping back up, but just as a way of balancing the body. So you place your feet. You don't even have to use the ball if you don't want to, but of course, that's always an option. And you take a moment with your eyes gently open and your focus soft, just to inhale and exhale, feeling yourself resting and neutral into the mat. On your next inhale breath, lift your kegel inward. And as you exhale, press your hips upward, keeping neutral through the spine and stretching the front of the hip joints. Inhale at the top, balancing the weight in the feet, and then exhale, lower back down. 2 more of these. Long and firm through the sides of the waist, connected downstream and up. Your center held consistently. And when you've lowered from the last one, relax your legs long. Let everything go soft. And have 3 rounds of breath. I won't keep you longer than that. Feeling balance return to the body, releasing the work of the previous hour. One more inhale and exhale. And that's it, you guys. Nice job.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're welcome. Have a great day. I'm going to turn off the recording and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.